morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Justina Agnieszka Chevalier. I would like to continue this promised in prior video glossary of terminology that often is used in mass media and socially as offense and generates a potent sense of being contempted upon, as well as creates lots of misunderstanding as to where that response comes from. When it comes to emotional responses, we can assign to those vectors that cause that when realized, those emotions determine in which direction to lead conversation and lead interactions. I hope that this is audible enough, that area is quite busy because I am in Portland. To understand that, please view prior number, I think 3 or 4 down videos going upwards. Yes, upwards, I believe so. That will actually provide you with additional information about proper context occurring every day of determination where the hurt is, and then conducting based on emotions life and all of work activities in such way that you are aware of where negative emotions from you stem from, and you need to doing so include self always as a potential mating sexual partner or an actual one. And that will give in aversion or negative emotions and in elation and good emotions a sense of where the vectors go. When we determine in self emotions that are negative, then that indicates suffering or harm somewhere else, and this is a response that it seems because it is righteous. However, the relativity of righteousness is that when it is to pursue harm, so a negative response from emotions to a pursuit of later on a pain, disease, or in a larger scale, in even one person or individual creature, harm or the miss or trapping and unwanted disgust, as well as a negative emotion. An example states the directionality of own action in such righteousness is wrong, and when we do so, we also cannot all of past harm and coming apart from sensitivity occurring one, we cannot ignore or deny its existence because it reduces acuteness of responses, and responses that simply by subtle shift, noticeable one, in those methods that I am describing based on knowledge, will change everyday reality of yours and also others to a reality that is much more effective with whatever it is that you do in personal and also professional life, and will be reflected in the area in difference, in a shift to much more oriented towards progress, wanted one, and towards actual change to more harmonious society, as opposed to hiding suffering or trying to soften it. Let's now try to explain, for instance, a term degenerate. Often when we are contrasted with a situation in which a person who is of a large age discrepancy between our youth pursues what it seems like a relationship that could be in nature potentially sexual with a person who is innocent or who does not possess such life experience, that generates fear. Persons of such age, all of us actually, at certain age and life experience is significant because it can be a younger person, have lived a sexual relationship in love that resulted actually in the unexpected to many a degree of bond, romantic bond, denominated by many a long-term romantic attachment, and have that in their memory as a what I determine as a denominator or a marker of what it takes for that person to pursue a relationship as serious. What does it mean? To pursue sexuality only in a context of a pursuit of offspring and lifelong love in reciprocity. And therefore, when those persons are approaching, they seem to act in contempt. And when in speech they approach and propose things that are associated with children, such as dating and sexual activity, that is often done in very vulgar vocabulary, or impede this completely by aggression, which is in fact a demand of respect in nature based on a protection of right to a possessive love, having such a realization that I've described in components that go together as a drugless mind expansion. That is often interpreted and disguised by as addictions, as well as being insensitive or careless, and very demanding or entitled. Degenerate is often described as a person who is a drunkard or using drugs, and who has a list of unfulfilled seemingly relationships and pursues relationships that are shallow, or so it seems. This is false. The shallowness of relationships is because of that impediment caused by greater realization of mutual adoration. So experience at least once of being profoundly loved by someone in the context of romantic love and sexual love, and loving back another person also to such degree in a sexual way that resulted in a realization of reciprocity and pursuit of a child, and either had a marker in such pursuit that was, for instance, determined by the need for work to assure survival in a given area and assure provision of basic needs in a given area, assure of a well-being of animals or creatures, which formed in response an impediment from the social circles or from other persons in pursuit of own children and marriage. And such impediment was by that person considered a manipulation toward a relationship second or less serious in degree of infatuation, love, adoration for that person, and from that person striving from that in realization of that being inherently from sexuality, own sexuality, that is for an association of self as source of children. And when that was impeded, resulted in an work or in disregard to others who did have such chance. And therefore, the degenerate is a person who is simply experienced, and marking such person as not possible to pursue or not possible to include in society is false. And that is a person who can, having such experience, actually form new relationships that are much more fulfilling when that terminology has, when presented in mental health notes, police reports, as well as in mass media and common language, it's shifted based on that knowledge to a comprehension of that person's behavior, and taking that as a point of reference, even if a person only is basing their knowledge on information, education, such as provided as here, knows who is and who is not possible by that person to pursue. Often, persons who do not possess and full understanding of sexuality as source of children and have never yet experienced, as if children, seriousness of emotional elation associated with it, speak about it in this respect or use vocabulary that is so in fact upsetting and annoying to the person that person pursues then harm or responds in extreme annoyance and self-defense and pursues harm of others who approach or insinuate that that person can pursue children with, always remember, someone else than that remembered very serious relationship, including relationships prior to that from the past or new ones that treat an inherent to dynamic of two possessiveness and also expansion and territoriality, for a man, and for a woman disinhibition, so wearing lighter clothes in assumption that that person, that one man, protects and that person can trust because the others know and conscientiate the presence of another person, serious one. And when that person, based on that, because of a unilateral conceptualization of sexual responses from only one person as opposed to cause effect two persons of opposite gender, is pursued then for a serious relationship or offered degrading, marked as a loveless relationship where sex is presented as a commodity, for instance in exchange of money, that person reaches a point of limit where that person remembers being profoundly loved by an opposite gender partner in the context of sex and accepted to pursue a child, and responds with primal family defense to harm or to mutilate the person who wants more. Sometimes the sensitivity is such that when a person demeans in any form that those mature in fact persons, that causes in a rage and assurance in public that harm was pursued to indicate fidelity and gain respect of others, that is presented then as badness. See, pursuit of harm, we actually implying that there is inherently something derived from cells wrong without causality, or that unfulfilled relationship broken apart often against sheer willpower of one or the other, or enforce relationships that are different or insinuate that the person who does not possess realization, who understands only sexuality as something that is pending discoveries and pursuits for perhaps discovery of sensual pleasures, etc. Person disguise then sexual arousal in self, such as blurred speech, dilation of pupils, as well as an instinct to pursue other partners, in men especially of women, based on visual or other stimuli. They disguise that with addictions, and so person can smoke or drink or take drugs, and the person does such consciated that it actually does mimic the exact sexual responses in very serious relationship, to not to be pursued based on self-degradation in speech, as well as pursuit of such in others, or pursuit of chronic illnesses labels or social degradation indicative of crime markers, to remain faithful. And you see, that has to be always presented as such, that person, regardless of being under influence of a substance or not, is displaying into sexual surrender that is in a relaxation consistent with an ingestion of heroin, for instance, or sexual arousal that is consistent to pursue a mate with ingestion, for instance, of amphetamines. And that is always present, accompanied with drugs that simply allow to dissociate sexuality from a bodily responses to the substance, because that person remains faithful and wants to disguise a lack of love, and it does not wish for love, being faithful to one opposite gender partner, sexual one always.